Hello and welcome once again to the video. Wow, what a race. Not just the result, the whole race. Fantastic. As a number of you will already know, this is a series where I look at a very brief look, just from a fan's perspective, of each race in the Formula One World Championship. Currently, of course, being the 2024 Formula One World Championship. So, the way I start off initially is just a rundown of the finishing order, and then a top 10 in the Drivers' Championship, and then the rundown of the Constructors' Championship. Okay, so without further ado, let's dive in. Okay, so that's round number 6. Miami. Looks like my pen's running out. Norris. Second. Verstappen. Leclerc. My pen is definitely running out. Oh dear. Just making sure that's in focus. For Sainz. Perez. Hamilton. That's a bit messy, that fall. Okay, 7th. Tsunoda. Russell. Alonso. Ocon. Hulkenberg. Gasly. Piastri. Zhou. Ricciardo. Bottas. Stroll. Magnussen. My pen is running out badly now. Can it make it to the end? Sargeant. Oh dear, look at that. Poor old Williams. Okay, so now the rundown in the Drivers' Championship. Definitely a new pen for the next video. Verstappen 136. Perez 101. Leclerc 98. Let's just make sure that's definitely in focus nicely. 4th. Oh dear, look. Just stopped writing for a few seconds there. It's enough to make it fail. 85. Still in 5th place, Norris, but a lot closer. 83. 6th. Piastri 41. 7th. 37. Russell 8. Tsunoda there for the first time. 14. Wow. Okay, now the constructors. We have, of course, Redbull, 237. Ferrari, 189. McLaren, 124. In fourth spot, distant fourth, Mercedes, 64. Fifth, Aston Martin on 42. Sixth, RB, 19.7. Haas on 7th, and 7, 8 is Alpine with 1 point. 9th, Williams. 10th. Okay, so let's just go over that a little bit. Okay, so there you are, and there you have it. What a race. That was a really exciting race, irrespective of the final result. Let's just put down Piastri fastest lap. Firstly, of course, we had the, let me just get my notes out. I did take a few notes here. There we go. Right, so get rid of that over there. Okay, yeah, we had the sprint race first now. As you know, I always say this, I'm not a big fan of sprint races. I would always rather the main race be 10 laps longer. If physically possible for the drivers, I would want it to be 10 laps longer rather than have a sprint race. But I would still rather have a sprint race than a second and third practice session. Anyway, there's not a big accident at the start of the sprint race, but one that involved quite a few drivers, wasn't it? It was Hamilton, Aston Martin, both Aston Martins, plus Hamilton, plus Norris. Whose fault was it? I don't know. I think Hamilton was obviously out of control going up the inside. It reminded me of when I play the PC game, actually, and I get a bit too excited going up the inside as people are going into a corner, and I suddenly realise there's no room because everyone's taken a wider line into the corner, left the inside free, but the problem is they're then going to go all the way around the corner like that, and you're just going to plough into them. And that's what happened. It happened to Perez in the actual Grand Prix as well. So that's what happened to Hamilton. So he came up not as aggressively as Perez in the Grand Prix, but Hamilton came up a bit too sharp and sort of squeezed. Also, Stroll seemed like he sort of squeezed Alonso a little bit into Hamilton. Alonso was an innocent victim. So was Norris, unless it could be argued that Norris could have gone a bit wider. He could have maybe been aware of what was going on, and he could have gone a bit wider because he was on the outside. Anyway, Norris got spun out. He retired. Stroll retired. Was it Stroll or Alonso that retired a little bit after that? Hamilton still continued, though, without any problems. And he had a ding-dong battle with Magnussen. It's fantastic. That often happens. Seems to happen in the sprint races. Hamilton and Magnussen get together and have a tussle. Some great moves. Great jostling. That was enjoyable, even though it was just a sprint race. But difficult to get too excited, especially when they're only aiming for 8 points for a win. They really do need to, I think, if they're going to do half race distance, was it half race distance? I suppose it wasn't, was it? It was 19 laps. So it's like 1/3 distance. So maybe you should give 1/3 points, I guess. But I don't know. I think it should be half points. Because they're risking a lot. They're risking their cars, they're risking their lives, all for just 8 points for a win. And yes, I know it only used to be 9 points for a win. In fact, it was 8 points for a win in the 50s. But the difference is that there's also a Grand Prix, that gives 25 points for a win. So I do think the sprint should get more than 8. And indeed, I believe that the actual main Grand Prix should be 30 points for a win, 20 points for second, and then you can go 15 downwards, as it is at the moment. I know they're discussing lengthening down to 12th place, aren't they, for points? Do I have a problem with that? If I had to vote, I would probably say keep it at 10. I know some people say points all the way down, but then it does water down the impact of scoring a point. If all you've got to do is turn up and take your coat off, and you automatically score a point as long as you finish. I don't think it takes away from the achievement of scoring points. So I don't think it should go lower than 10th. But I can understand how some teams, considering there's a real gap between the top 5 and the bottom 5, obviously a number of teams would love it to go to 11th and 12th. Right, so yeah, pole position, Max Verstappen, of course. Now, Lando Norris was super fast in quali, practice and sprint quali. Didn't get a chance to show it in the sprint, and he was super fast in Q1 and Q2 for the Grand Prix, especially Q2. And so even though he only qualified 5th because he had a poor Q3, I still thought Lando Norris was going to absolutely, well, not absolutely, but I thought him and Verstappen would be the fastest in the race. Yeah, I absolutely thought that Norris was going to do really well in the Grand Prix because of how fast he had been in Q2. Which is why I was a little bit disappointed at the start when he dropped back a place behind Piastri, and Piastri shot up from 6th place to 3rd place in the aftermath, taking advantage of Perez's harpooning into the first corner, where he nearly took out Verstappen and Leclerc. Very, very close. Anyway, you had most people on mediums. Hamilton, Alonso, Magnussen and Ricciardo were on hards. Alonso, once again, doing the opposite, and Hamilton, actually. Hamilton and Alonso seem to do the opposite to what most do all the time. Bottas started on softs for some reason. Which is a bit of a waste, I think, because, you're not going to be able to scythe through the field on soft tyres when you're surrounded by loads of cars. It's difficult to overtake, and you're not going to be able to do that in a Sauber. So I don't know what that really gained starting on softs. But yeah, Piastri got a fantastic start, and then he got past Leclerc as well, didn't he? So Piastri was all the way up to 2nd place, from 6th to 2nd. I was then thinking, okay, maybe it won't be Norris that stars in this race. It'll be Piastri, but it'll definitely be a McLaren. But Norris was hanging in there. He was down in 6th place. He had dropped a few seconds back, but then I thought maybe he's just holding onto his tyres. He's just protecting his tyres, and he didn't fall any further back. We had Alpine versus Alpine. We had some fantastic fighting. Right, the earliest bit was the Alpines next to each other, going through, a lot of it was going through turn 11. And then the subsequent squiggly bits after that. And the Alpines were next to each other, side by side, for a number of corners. It was fantastic. And that's what we want to see and that's what we want to see in a Grand Prix in America, because we need it to be a success. We want, I think racing F1 in America is the most successful it's ever been, even though we have had as many as 3 races in a year before in America, in the early 80s. I think at the moment it's the most popular it's been, thanks, I think, to Netflix as well. despite Verstappen winning every race, which is why this result was fantastic for F1's general popularity, but especially in America. And all the overtaking and all the fighting and the scrapping and all the side-by-side racing. It was great stuff. But yeah, so the first time that I thought maybe Norris was going to come back up, because going into the race, I was very excited about Norris, and I thought if he can get a couple of places at the start, he's going to threaten Verstappen. Probably not win, but he'll definitely threaten Verstappen because he was so quick previously in the weekend, basically, apart from Q3. So, but the first time that you really got a sense of that was when he got released by Perez, because Norris was stuck behind Perez in the early part of the race. Perez recovering from his band's eye move. He was in 5th, Norris was in 6th. Once Norris just couldn't get past Perez, but he was still monstering Perez the whole time. And then Perez came into the pits for his first pit stop, to come off his mediums, and it released Norris, and he closed a gap to Sainz that had been about 5 seconds. He closed it down to 1.5 seconds, just remorselessly eating in it. And as soon as Norris started doing that, I thought, wow, Norris is just as quick as I thought he would be after that Q2, and he hasn't really lost a lot of time. There's still a chance here for him to do really well in this race. I thought at that stage he would probably finish 2nd behind Verstappen. Yeah, yet again. But yeah, so Sainz then came in for his pit stop to avoid being chomped by Norris. And then shortly after that, I think Leclerc stopped as well, didn't he? Or I can't remember exactly when Leclerc stopped, but there was a virtual safety car round about this time due to Verstappen hitting some bollards. And then after that virtual safety car, I think Verstappen was leading, wasn't he? Not long after that, we had the full safety car from Magnussen and Sargeant. Clearly Magnussen's error. Magnussen obviously thought that Sargeant was going to see him coming up the inside, going into that corner, but Sargeant clearly didn't. Those corners, those left-rights are so tightly packed together that I think Sargeant was just concentrating on trying to get through them rather than looking to see who might be trying to overtake him. So there was no room for Magnussen. That brought out the safety car, and I think the only driver that hadn't, there were 2 drivers, I think, that hadn't stopped. 2 prominent drivers, anyway. Norris and Tsunoda. Let me have a little drink. So Norris and Tsunoda were able to come in and have a cheap pit stop because the rest of the field had been slowed up. But just like in, I think it was in China, Norris had to wait a whole lap, driving really slow before coming in. But not as slow as the cars held up behind the safety car. And the safety car picked up Verstappen. Now, what would have happened if the safety car had picked up Norris, because he was leading at the time? If they'd picked up Norris, that would have drawn the field together. Norris would have had to have gone around a whole nother lap and then had his pit stop with all the cars tight up behind him. So time-wise, he would have saved 10 seconds, but he would have been miles down the field, of course, because all the cars would have bunched up. But fortunately, the safety car picked up Verstappen by mistake and not Norris, which meant that Norris was able to go a little bit quicker and keep that gap between him and the safety car followed by Verstappen. So when Norris came out after his pit stop, he was miles ahead. That obviously had to be corrected because it was massively unfair advantage for Norris. So the safety car stayed out and picked up Norris and drew the field together. But Norris was at the front. That was the important thing. And I think had they picked up Norris, I think Norris would have been further down the field, basically, had the safety car picked up Norris. But anyway. But it was also unfortunate that Norris had to do a whole lap before being able to come into the pits. Still, what showed that Norris really deserved this win, of course, was what happened after the restart. Norris was nearly passed by Verstappen before the race was even restarted. Verstappen did what he did in Abu Dhabi 2021, or nearly did it. That has subsequently been banned because of what Verstappen did, and that is like driving alongside the person who's about to restart the race at the front. Verstappen went to pull alongside Norris, but then pulled out. Otherwise, Verstappen might have got a penalty for that. Anyway, Norris had a bit of a weak restart. Maybe it's his first restart whilst leading, possibly. And but that was it. He had a bit of a weak start. Verstappen nearly got past him, I think, going into the first corner. And then that was it. Norris just pulled away, gradually pulled away, bit by bit by bit, doing faster slap after faster slap after faster slap. It was incredible. It kept pinging up on the screen. That reminded me of Mexico 1991, where Mansell had had a problem with his car. And he had been catching his teammate, Ricciardo Patrese. He was half a minute behind with about 20 laps to go. And he remorselessly was taking more than a second out of Patrase's lead every lap. And it was just faster slap after faster slap after faster slap. In the end, he crossed the line 1.5 seconds behind his teammate Patrese. And this reminded me of that. Faster slap after faster slap. It's incredible stuff. Really good. So much great action on the track into turn 11, as I've mentioned earlier. Turn 11 was fantastic. That's the place to be at Miami. So much action there. You don't get to see them going very fast, but you see so much action into that corner. Side by side stuff. Fantastic. We had Piastri. Oh yeah, one of the big moves into turn 11, of course, was Sainz trying to get past Piastri, Piastri defending, and then Hamilton managing to get past Piastri, and Perez was in the mix there somewhere as well. There's about 4 cars all driving through the corner at the same time. Hamilton managed to get past Piastri, Sainz got past Piastri. There's just great stuff going on all the time. It was really quite something. So I've done what I normally don't do, actually. I've given a little bit of a rundown of the race rather than looking at each individual driver, but I wasn't really looking at all the other drivers. Hamilton had a really good race, a very strong race, but 6th. I mean, he's happy with that, but that's amazing, being happy with 6th. But, the championship's gone and he's going to Ferrari anyway, so he's not going to be tremendously bothered. Tsunoda, another fantastic performance by Tsunoda. And we've got RB on 19 points over there, which is really good. Russell, a bit lacklustre. It's surprising that Russell wasn't able to get past Hamilton on the first stint, considering Russell was on mediums, Hamilton was on hards. Alonso didn't really do much in this race. The Aston Martin is not performing fantastically at the moment, it has to be said. Alpine managing to get a point. That's incredible. Look, 1 point due to Ocon. Just nipping Hulkenberg. Gasly there as well. So maybe that's showing improvement for Alpine, possibly. Bottas started on softs. That didn't do anything for him. Zhou, nothing really happened with him. Ricciardo started right at the back, didn't he? I believe. Nothing happened with him. Albon, I think he had his first pit stop on lap 11 or something. And then he tried to go the whole distance. Or 46 laps. And couldn't, and had to come in again just a few laps before the end. Sargeant had that accident, of course. I said at the beginning of the year, Sargeant will definitely be gone at the end of the year. Well, it might be sooner than that, I reckon. Magnussen, did he have loads of penalties again, like he did in this sprint? Hamilton got a penalty in the sprint as well, didn't he? But Magnussen, penalty after penalty, basically, which he admitted to. In the sprint, he said, yeah, I took them for the team to help Hulkenberg. Anyway, what a fantastic performance by Norris. And apparently it's the 21st British Grand Prix winner. I haven't checked those stats. I could easily check them, but I'm assuming they're including Eddie Irvine. It's a bit of a grey area. Eddie Irvine is not British. He's from Northern Ireland, which means he's from the United Kingdom, but Great Britain is England, Scotland and Wales. It's very confusing. That's why in the Olympics it's sort of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Often athletics tournaments it'll be Great Britain and Northern Ireland. I don't know why they can't just call it United Kingdom. But I don't think there's a facility to race under the United Kingdom. So therefore I think Eddie Irvine raced under the Union flag for Great Britain. I think he officially represented Great Britain, even though he's from Northern Ireland and therefore the United Kingdom. It's very confusing, but I suspect he's one of those 21. So I think Norris was number 22, I think. Well, I'll have to double check that. Now this is interesting. Piastri, a bit of an own goal, because he came in right at the end because he had his wing damaged in his massive tussle with Sainz. Fantastic fight with Sainz that went on for ages. Because he had his front wing damaged in his coming together with Sainz, it meant that he had to have a pit stop late. He went on to mediums and took Norris. Norris had about the top 20 fastest laps in the race. Piastri pinched it off him, took that point off him. It might just be 1 point, but I don't think the team get those points, do they? Do the team get those points? Let's have a look. 230. Yeah, because I'm sure Verstappen has had a fastest lap, surely, this year, and that would be 237, which matches that. And Leclerc and Sainz, we've got hang on a minute, 189, yeah, so of course I'm forgetting Behrman. That's a bad example, isn't it? I can't remember how many points he scored. But anyway, I'm sure Verstappen has had some fastest laps. So that must mean that the team do get the point for fastest lap. So McLaren shot themselves in the foot there by having Piastri take a point off Norris and a point off McLaren by doing the fastest lap, because he's outside the top 10. That was an own goal. They should have told Piastri not to do that, basically. But I guess he thought there was an outside chance he might get into the top 10. But he didn't make it. But that's an own goal by McLaren, sloppy, losing that point, definitely for Norris, and I think for the team as well. But yeah, it's sloppy, that was, very sloppy. Alpine is 1 point, fantastic, look at RB go, 19 points. We've got McLaren, who have nearly got double the points of Mercedes, the works Mercedes. Customer Mercedes, McLaren, nearly double the points of the works Mercedes. We've seen that sort of thing in the past. Norris's 110th Grand Prix, which is the same number of Grand Prix that Hamilton raced for McLaren. Him getting that win, Norris getting this win, it's reminded me so much of Jenson Button. In fact, his whole career has reminded me of Jenson Button. Jenson Button was racking up loads of podiums in the early noughties, especially 2004. Seconds and thirds was so highly thought of, but couldn't break the Ferraris. He could break Barrichello, but couldn't break Schumacher. And then suddenly in 2006, at his 113th Grand Prix, Jenson Button managed to win Hungarian Grand Prix 2006. I remember it well. Alonso had a bit of a mishap in the pits, I think. That gave a little bit of an advantage to Button and allowed him to get that win instead of what was probably going to be yet another second place. Here, Norris has done it on his 110th Grand Prix with a load of podiums behind him. Very, very, very similar to Button, the way his career has played out. Okay, I think that's the end of the video. What a fantastic result at long last. Norris gets there. Where's the next race? Is Emilia Romagna, isn't it? I still insist on calling it San Marino, at the Imola circuit. Thank you for watching. thank you for listening. Is there anything I've left off my notes? Don't think so, no. Everything's there. Okay, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to subscribe, please do so. If you would like to leave a comment or a like, please do so. If you'd like to leave a tip, please do so at the thanks button underneath the video. And I will see you on the very next video, whatever it may be about. I'll definitely have, if it's one that involves this pen like this, I'll definitely have a new one. I've got a lot of these. Okay. Once again, thank you. And I will see you next time.